The Exile. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched like a cathedral above Ambassador Elena Reyes, its translucent walls displaying the slow dance of stars beyond. 200 species watched from the tiered seating that encircled the central platform, where she stood with her small delegation from Earth. The 7 High Counselors, representing the founding races of the Galactic Compact, observed her with expressions that ranged from tentative curiosity to unmistakable distrust. Distinguished members of the Council, Elena began, her voice steady despite the weight of 5 billion human lives resting on her shoulders. Earth extends its gratitude for this audience. For centuries, humanity dreamed of this moment, confirmation that we are not alone in the cosmos. We come in peace, eager to join your community of worlds. The Arcavian Counselor, a being of crystalline form whose internal structures pulsed with blue light, spoke first. We have studied your broadcasts for decades, Ambassador. Your species has spent more of its recorded history at war with itself than at peace. The universal translator rendered the melodic tones into flat, emotionless speech. No other species admitted to the compact has demonstrated such persistent aggression. Elena had anticipated this. Earth's history was indeed bloody, but also remarkable. Counselor, through conflict we forged cooperation. Our diversity of thought has driven innovation at rates that is precisely what concerns us, interrupted the Malavian Counselor, her gelatinous form rippling. Your species advances most rapidly during periods of conflict. Your technological progress accelerated most dramatically during your world wars and cold wars. From the back of the Earth delegation, Fleet Admiral Jackson Chen watched with growing unease. As the military representative, he had insisted on accompanying the diplomatic team despite objections that his presence might send the wrong message. Now he understood why. This wasn't going well. The Hive representative of the Vectheri leaned forward, its compound eyes reflecting the chamber's light. We have analyzed your species' psychological profiles extensively. Your inherent competitiveness presents an unacceptable risk factor. Even your cooperative ventures are framed as competitions, races to space, economic dominance, athletic contests. With respect, Elena countered, competition drives excellence. Our competitive nature has allowed us to overcome environmental challenges, disease, and resource limitations. We've united our planet, eliminated hunger, and developed sustainable energy systems. Admiral Chen watched the council members exchange glances through their neural interfaces, a silent conversation humans couldn't access. He recognized the look from countless military negotiations. They had already decided. The Zenithian Prime, the senior counselor whose silicon-based form seemed almost statue-like, raised an appendage for silence. Ambassador Reyes, we do not dispute humanity's achievements. Your adaptability is remarkable. Your creativity, commendable. But these qualities, combined with your aggressive tendencies, represent a destabilizing influence. Elena felt her heart sink. What are you saying, Counselor? The Council has voted. Earth is classified as a Category IA civilization, technologically advanced, but culturally unsuitable for integration. A quarantine boundary will be established at the edge of your solar system. You may develop within those confines, but any attempt to venture beyond will be considered an act of aggression against the compact. A murmur ran through the Earth delegation. Dr. Sanjay Patel, their lead scientist, stepped forward. How long will this quarantine last? What benchmarks must we meet for reconsideration? The Malavian surface rippled in what the humans would later learn was amusement. Based on evolutionary models of similar species, approximately 50,000 years. 50,000 years, longer than human civilization had existed. It was a death sentence to humanity's interstellar ambitions. This is outrageous, Dr. Patel objected. You're condemning us based on a history we've moved beyond. At least allow us to present evidence of our. The decision is final, the Zenithian Prime stated. You will be escorted back to your vessel and return to Earth. This session is concluded. As security drones surrounded the Earth delegation, Admiral Chen fell into step beside Ambassador Reyes. "I told you they'd fear us," he said quietly. "This isn't fear," Elena replied, her diplomat's composure cracking. "It's prejudice." "It's both," Chen corrected. "And they just made the biggest mistake in their history." On the journey back to Earth, while the diplomats drafted their grim report, Admiral Chen called a private meeting in the ship's secure conference room. The military and scientific personnel gathered in silence. "They'd given us a choice," Chen began without preamble. "Accept extinction through isolation, or find another way." Dr. Patel frowned. "A quarantine enforced by ships centuries beyond our technology isn't much of a choice." "They showed us their hand," Chen replied. "They revealed faster than light travel, advanced materials, energy sources we've only theorized. More importantly, they showed us that most species out there evolved through cooperation rather than competition." Captain Maya Rodriguez, the ship's commander, leaned forward, making them vulnerable to those who didn't. Chen nodded. "Exactly. You're suggesting we violate the quarantine?" Patil asked, alarmed. "That would confirm every fear they have about us." "No," Chen said. "I'm suggesting we use what they've given us, a common enemy for all humanity. With this exile, Earth will unite as never before. We'll develop in secret, reverse engineer what we can, and prepare." "For what?" Elena asked from the doorway. The Admiral hadn't invited her, but she'd come anyway. "War. For survival," Chen replied. "And for the day we return to the stars on our terms, not theirs." The announcement of Earth's quarantine shocked the planet into unity. Ancient rivalries dissolved as nations faced a common threat: extinction through isolation. The Terran Expansion Initiative was born, a globally funded project to overcome the Council's restrictions. 5 years after the quarantine, Dr. Patil stood in the heart of Olympus Base, carved deep into Mars' Olympus Mons. Around him, the most brilliant minds from Earth worked in shifts that never ended. They had one advantage the Council hadn't considered: humans worked best when told they couldn't do something. "Run the simulation again," Patil ordered, wiping sweat from his brow, despite the climate control. The holographic display showed a theoretical distortion of space-time, their 10th attempt at understanding how the Council's ships traveled faster than light. "Field stabilizing at 64%, reported his assistant, Dr. Ling Wei. "Still not enough for transition. Try modulating the quantum field with the pattern we observed from the Council ship's wake," Patil suggested. The data had come from the tiny probes they'd managed to attach to the Council escort vessels during their return to Earth, a desperate gamble that had paid off. The simulation shifted, the energy pattern contracting before stabilizing into a perfect torus. "Field integrity at 91%, Dr. Wei announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. "We could actually make the jump with these parameters." Patil allowed himself a small smile. "Record everything. We test the prototype tomorrow." Meanwhile, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Chen, now Director of Earth Defense, received Patil's message in his command center. The aging military leader permitted himself a moment of satisfaction before addressing his strategic team. "Phase 1 is complete. Initiate Phase 2. Within hours, the prototype drive was connected to a small unmanned probe. The test chamber's feed displayed on screens worldwide as Earth's united leadership watched. The actual device looked deceptively simple, a ring of specialized materials housing technology reverse-engineered from Council debris, fitted with human-made components. "In theory, this will create a quantum tunnel through space-time," Patil explained to the global audience, allowing instantaneous travel between 2 points. The test began. Energy readings climbed steadily as the ring began to glow with an unearthly light. Inside the ring, space itself seemed to shimmer and distort. Then, with a flash that momentarily overloaded the cameras, the probe vanished. Silence fell over monitoring stations worldwide. Then communication officers began shouting. "Signal acquired. The beacon is transmitting from beyond Neptune's orbit." The room erupted in cheers. Patil closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by the moment. Director Chen's weathered face appeared on the main screen. How soon until we can scale it for a ship? 6 months for a prototype. Perhaps a year before we can equip our first vessel, Patil replied. Chen nodded. You'll have whatever resources you need. This changes everything. 12 months later, Earth launched its first hyperspace-capable ship, the TSV Prometheus. Built in secret beneath the lunar surface, it carried a crew of 30 and slipped past the Council quarantine using a combination of stealth technology and the new drive. At Chen's insistence, they kept their first journey modest, a nearby star system with no Council presence, just far enough to prove the concept. Captain Rodriguez commanded the mission, with Patel aboard as science officer. As the Prometheus emerged from hyperspace, the bridge crew stared in awe at the viewscreen showing an alien sun. Navigation confirms we've reached the Ta City system, reported Lieutenant Kim. All ship systems nominal. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Begin survey operations and send our status back to Earth on a quantum comm. Tell them we've taken the first step. The Prometheus spent 3 weeks in the system, cataloging planets and resources. They found no life, but identified a mineral-rich asteroid belt ideal for mining operations. When they returned to Earth, Chen was waiting for them in the secure lunar dock. Congratulations, he said, shaking Rodriguez's hand. You've just changed human history. What's next? She asked. Chen's eyes gleamed. Now we build. We establish mining operations in that asteroid belt, then more. We create a network of bases beyond the quarantine, all hidden from Council sensors. And we look for allies. Allies? Patel questioned. Other species willing to defy the Council. The Council has existed for thousands of years, Chen explained. There must be other species who chafe under their restrictions, who've been categorized and limited as we have been. We find them. We form relationships. We build an alternative to the compact. As they spoke, data from stealth probes was already mapping the territories beyond Council space. Humanity had been caged, but the cage had only sharpened their determination. The stars that had been denied to them would soon witness humanity's return, not as supplicants seeking admission, but as equals demanding recognition. The quarantine had begun, but so had Earth's plans for what would come after. The return. 20 years after Earth's quarantine, Commander Sophia Chen stood on the bridge of the TSV Nemesis, humanity's most advanced warship. She stared at the tactical display, showing a Vectheri harvester ship approaching the atmosphere of Novari Prime. The Novarians, a pre-FTL civilization that resembled feathered reptiles, had no idea they were about to become the latest victims of the Council's resource acquisition program. Harvester continuing on approach vector, reported Lieutenant Alvarez from Tactical. They're deploying atmospheric processors. Based on previous patterns, they'll begin terraforming operations within hours. Sophia's jaw tightened. The atmospheric changes would kill most of the Novarian population within weeks. This was how the benevolent Council operated beyond its central systems, stripping resources from worlds with species deemed too primitive to have rights. Signal the Athena and the Orion, she ordered, referring to the 2 escort ships accompanying the Nemesis. Formation Delta. Prepare to decloak. Her communications officer looked up in surprise. Commander, are you suggesting we intervene? Standing orders are to observe and document only. I'm suggesting nothing, Sophia interrupted. I'm giving an order. Open a channel to the Harvester. Earth's hidden empire had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 17 thriving colonies operated beyond Council detection, connected by a network of hyperspace corridors that Council sensors couldn't track. A fleet of ships with technology that now matched or exceeded Council standards patrolled these secret territories. And most importantly, Earth had established alliances with 7 other species who existed beyond Council jurisdiction or who had their own reasons to resent Council authority. Admiral Chen's dream had become reality. But until now, humanity had remained hidden, gathering strength while avoiding direct confrontation with Council forces. The Nemesis decloaked directly in the Harvester's path, flanked by her escort ships. Together, the three human vessels formed a barrier between the Vectheri ship and the Novarian world. "Channel open," announced communications. Sophia straightened her uniform. "Vectheri vessel, this is Commander Sophia Chen of the Terran ship Nemesis. The Novarian civilization is under our protection. Withdraw your terraforming equipment and leave this system immediately." For several long moments, there was no response. Then the main screen flickered to show a Vectheri commander, its insectoid features rigid with surprise. "Unidentified vessels." The Vectheri's translation device converted its clicks to standard language. "You are interfering with a Council-authorized resource acquisition. This system has been properly registered for development." The alien's compound eyes shifted, clearly trying to identify the unknown ships. Human vessels bore no resemblance to their original Earth designs after 20 years of development. "Humans," the Vectheri finally stated, its translator unable to hide the shock. "You are quarantined to your home system by Council decree. Your presence here is illegal." Sophia smiled thinly. "We no longer recognize Council authority over human activities. The Novarians will be given the chance to develop naturally without interference. This is not a request." "You have no standing here," chittered the Vectheri. "The Council determined your species unfit for interstellar society." The alien turned to someone off-screen. "Target the lead vessel." Sophia nodded to tactical. "Shields up. Defensive pattern theta." The Nemesis shuddered as the Harvester fired. The human vessel's shields flared but held steady. "Shields at 92%, reported Lieutenant Alvarez. "Minor power fluctuation in secondary systems." "Return fire," Sophia ordered. "Disable their propulsion and weapons only." The Nemesis advanced targeting systems locked onto key points of the Vectheri vessel. Precisely calibrated energy pulses struck the Harvester's weapons and engines, immediately causing it to drift powerlessly. "Vectheri support vessels approaching from the moon's shadow," her first officer reported. "Engage as necessary. No casualties if it can be avoided," Sophia ordered. What followed wasn't truly a battle, it was a demonstration. The three human ships moved with precision and coordination that the Vectheri clearly hadn't expected. Within minutes, all four Vectheri vessels had been disabled, floating powerless but with life support intact. Sophia reopened the channel. The Vectheri commander's posture now displayed what intelligence briefings identified as shock and submission. "Your ships will be provided enough emergency power to reach the nearest Council outpost," she informed the alien. "You will deliver a message. The Novarian system is now under human protection, as are 11 other developing civilizations we have identified. Any attempt to interfere with these protected worlds will meet similar resistance. The Council will not tolerate this challenge," the Vectheri warned. Sophia leaned forward. "The Council has no choice. For 20 years, you believed us safely contained. In that time, we have built an empire in the shadows of yours. We have 17 colony worlds, a fleet of ships with technology that matches or exceeds Council standards, and alliances with other species who share our view of the Council's hypocrisy." She let this sink in before continuing. "We do not seek war, but neither will we accept exile. The Terran Alliance offers the Council two choices: acknowledge us as equals and begin negotiations for our formal recognition, or continue to pretend we don't exist while we further undermine your authority across the galactic rim." The Vectheri commander's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "I will convey your message." 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber that had once pronounced humanity's exile now buzzed with tension as representatives from 200 species discussed the human question. Reports of human interference had multiplied. Mysterious ships had appeared to defend vulnerable worlds, disabled Council resource operations, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. More disturbing were the rumors of an alliance of non-council species operating beyond the administrative boundaries of the compact, species trading technology, resources, and cultural works without council oversight or taxation. In the center of the chamber stood not a human delegation this time, but Director Elena Rice, the former ambassador now led Earth's unified government, appeared via hologram, her image towering over the council. 20 years ago, you judged humanity too dangerous for integration. Rice began, her voice echoing through the chamber. You feared our competitive nature, our history of conflict, our rapid advancement. So you isolated us, believing containment would either tame us or render us harmless. She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show images of human colonies, shipyards, and research facilities, all built beyond council space. Instead, you simply removed the constraints of cooperation. You gave us a common purpose. You forced us to become exactly what you feared. The Arcavian counselor's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. You have violated the quarantine, a direct act of aggression against the compact. Your unauthorized expansion threatens galactic stability. No, Rice countered. We've demonstrated the Council's inability to enforce its own edicts. We've exposed your exploitation of pre-spaceflight civilizations. We've created an alternative to your hegemony that already encompasses 23 species. The threat to stability isn't our presence, it's your refusal to adapt to changing realities. The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments, species taking sides based on their own interests. Some demanded military action against human territories. Others, particularly representatives from younger or less influential species, showed clear interest in this alternative to council dominance. The Zenithian Prime called for order. What does Earth want? Rice smiled. Recognition. A seat on the council. Reclassification of Earth as a Category I civilization with full rights to interstellar development, and reforms to protect developing species from exploitation. Impossible, declared the Malavian. You cannot violate our laws, and then demand concessions. We're not asking. Rice replied calmly. We're offering an alternative to conflict. The Terran Alliance controls key hyperspace junctions beyond your space. We've developed technologies you haven't mastered. And unlike the Council species, we know how to fight. We would prefer peaceful integration, but we're prepared for other outcomes. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity wasn't seeking readmission. They were negotiating from a position of strength. The Zenithian Prime spoke carefully. The Council must deliberate. This situation is unprecedented. Of course, Rice agreed. You have one standard month. Our representatives will arrive then to begin formal negotiations. Her hologram vanished before any could object to the timeline. Exactly 1 month later, a human diplomatic vessel escorted by 3 warships appeared at the edge of the Council's capital system. Led by Ambassador Sanjay Patel, the scientist who had helped break Earth's chains, the delegation entered Council space openly, broadcasting their presence on all frequencies. Millions watched across thousands of worlds as humans returned to the chamber that had rejected them. The negotiations lasted 12 days. When they concluded, the galaxy had changed forever. Earth received its council seat. The quarantine was officially lifted. Human colonies were recognized as sovereign territories. Most significantly, the Terran Alliance was acknowledged as an independent association of worlds with autonomous trading rights. In return, humanity agreed to share certain technologies, participate in Council peacekeeping operations, and abide by core compact regulations regarding uninhabited world development. As the treaties were signed, Ambassador Patel found himself standing beside the Arcavian counselor, whose crystal form now pulsed with more subdued colors. You must understand, the alien said quietly, our fears were not unfounded. Your history is exactly why we succeeded, Patel finished. You saw our conflicts as proof of innate aggression. What you failed to see was that those conflicts taught us to overcome differences, to adapt, to find strength in diversity. You feared the weapons we built, but missed the societies we created to wield them responsibly. Perhaps the Arcavian acknowledge. But there remains the question of whether integration is truly possible between such different evolutionary paths. Patel smiled. That's what makes it interesting, counselor. Not harmony through uniformity, but strength through difference. That's what the old council never understood, and what the new one must learn. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Director Reyes received an encrypted message from Admiral Jackson Chen, now in his 80s, but still overseeing Earth's defense from his headquarters beneath the Pacific. They never should have exiled us. The message read, but perhaps we should thank them for the favor. Reyes smiled as she composed her reply. They feared what they couldn't understand. Now they'll have to learn to understand what they fear. In the decades that followed, humanity's influence spread through council space. Human colonies became centers of innovation and cultural exchange. The reforms Earth had demanded gradually transformed the compact from a hegemony of ancient species to a more equitable federation. The younger races found their voices. The exploited gained protection. It wasn't always peaceful. Old prejudices died hard. There were factions within the council that never accepted human integration. There were humans who never forgave the exile. But the galaxy was changing, becoming more dynamic, more diverse, more resilient. 50 years after the quarantine, a monument was unveiled in Geneva, site of Earth's unified government. It depicted a simple broken chain, with words in every human language and several alien ones. They meant it as a cage. We made it a crucible. The council had feared humanity's competitive nature, their history of conflict, their rapid technological advancement. In isolating them, they had only ensured all those qualities would be focused on a single goal: return. And in achieving that return, humanity had transformed not just themselves, but the galaxy they had rejoined. The exile had ended. The next chapter had begun.